Hello everyone and welcome to my LEGO room. I'm TJ the Brickwright and today we're going to be talking about the entries into the Resistance Bomber contest. This was to replace the bomber from The Last Jedi that had a lot of issues with it, and I wanted to see what your ideas of those issues were and how you would fix them. So we had 11 entries into this contest, which I'm really excited about, and we even had entries from people who have previously won. So we have created that entirely new category, so people who've already won previous contests here on my channel can enter into win in their own bracket, a totally separate entry. So, ready? All right, here we go. First up, we have AlexO. This particular ship was built by the X-Wing company Incom, and it has modular munitions and cannon pods on the underneath. I apologize, I don't have good pictures of those. I think they got corrupted again, as happens before. It was inspired by the ARC 170 bomber, as well as some concept art that Alex found online, which was pretty awesome. But he was able to go quite a bit wider because not only is it inspired by the T70 or the ARC 170. I'll get there eventually. Not only was he inspired by the ARC 170, but he wanted to go wide instead of tall like the bombers from The Last Jedi. So it still had that commanding presence, something bigger than normal and out of the ordinary for the Resistance. So he did a fantastic job. I love the dual cockpits front and back. It's a little bit smaller than the ARC 170. We see some really good engine work on here, and I love the idea of the two Astromechs in the top, very similar to the giant Y-Wing that I made a while back. So he's definitely playing to my my proclivities on that one. Here up, we have Andrew. Andrew wasn't able to get me pictures, and my screenshots were just making the image so much worse. So what I've done is I've actually got his video playing in the background here so that you guys can see his ship. What I really liked about the ship is it's not just a bomber, but it's a gunship slash bomber, because one of the big issues from The Last Jedi, as you know, is that those bombers had very little defense. It's kind of funny, though, because they have guns all over it, a whole lot of blasters and laser cannons, but it was not sufficient at all to protect those bombers. So you can see that Andrew here definitely went overboard. Well, not overboard, but he definitely upped the ante on the number of weapons on this thing to make sure that it was covering everything on it. This one is kind of an evolution of the Resistance bomber, and its modular configurations have a bomb dropping mechanism, and it also can be reconfigured with the wings and the drop pod underneath on this one. So one of the things I like is in this particular video he had sent me, it is a 5-minute long video. I'm not going to spend the whole time on that because this is going to be that much longer, but I'll give you some of the highlights. The wings, the engines, and the bottom compartment can all be removed, and the whole thing can be reconfigured depending on the mission that you need. We've got the giant guns, we've got the gunner pod on the back, and you'd be surprised at how much of this thing can be taken apart and put back together in different configurations. I believe that the wings on this one were actually specifically designed for in-atmosphere bombing runs, whereas you can take those off for out of gravitational pull bombing runs and out of atmosphere kind of stuff. So awesome job, Andrew. This is by Commander Flair. Commander Flair created this B-class bomber. It also can double as a cargo carrier, so it's a multi-use kind of vehicle. And it has massive engines built specifically for speed. This ship is not going to get caught getting hit by little teeny TIE fighters and completely destroying the entire fleet. So this one was really fun because when he originally built this, he actually messaged me and showed me some preliminary stuff, and I said, wow, it's a good thing you added 2 pilots in that cockpit already, and that was before I had given that parameter, because it would be really hard to add a second pilot after the fact on this. Some of the other things that I really enjoy about this, and oh, sorry, that was a blurry picture, is the location of the Astromech on here. The Astromech actually fits in, well, I guess it's just a BB unit. You can't use a regular Astromech as far as I know. But the BB unit actually fits in there really nice and tight. I love the engine configurations on the back. I think that works out really well. I think it's very well balanced. And you can see on the back here that there are a couple of those cargo containers underneath. And they also can be used as external bomb payloads as well. Now we are on to Corey W. This is called the W-Wing Diamondback. It actually has a crew crew of 4 and includes an Astromech slot. You can see that from here. We've got a chopper in there. And then it actually has some massive shield generators, and has modular payload attachments. One of the things I really liked about this particular ship was the fact that the modular capability on the very top and bottom for the bomb bays is actually able to come in and out. You can see it at the back right there on this picture. There we go. So you can see how they can slide in and out. I'm getting it confused a little bit, but there's another one later that loads from the top. This one loads out the back, but they can be dropped and reused, and then it can actually do kind of a mid-air refueling is what he was mentioning to me, so that if he needs to, he can just pop out there, have a supply ship throw new pods at it, it can catch them, and then continue on another bombing run without having to stop for long periods of time for reloading, which I thought was a really brilliant way to do it. We can see a few images there of looking in the back through the hatches into the ship itself. It's really tight in there, but dang, he did a fantastic job on that. One of the crewmen was replaced with an Astromech because, Resistance being a little low on pilots and stuff at the time. But it's got room for all those. It looks very much like the inside of one of those B-17s from back in the day. So very good job. Here's a couple of those modular containers. Here's some with grenades, seismic charges, and then just some smaller bombs that can actually be deployed from this back mechanism. So fantastic job by Corey. And then next up, we have from Jason H. Corey, by the way, was number 4 on our list. Jason is number 5, and he built a bomber that has an underside wheel. So you actually flip a little wheel underneath and it drops the bombs down. So that was the mechanism that he included on that one. It has a heavy cannon and anti-shield on the side here. So what it does is it softens up the target beforehand. So if they have really heavy shields, you can use that to soften the target so the bombs can get through, which is a really smart idea. And then it has a modular munitions and troop compartment. You can see a little bit of a separation between the upper and lower sections on that. And the upper and lower sections can actually be replaced or taken apart from each other and then loaded on like a troop compartment instead of a bombardier bay, which is pretty cool. I liked the asymmetry of the front here. I thought it looked really good and was reminiscent of the bomber from The Last Jedi, which is pretty cool. And here we have it opened up. We got Poe Dameron ready to jump out there and do some damage. I love it. And then here is some of the modular components going in and out and showing the bomb bay inside, how you reload that. Fantastic. Number 6, we have Maximo, and he built a modular missile launcher compartment. This thing holds 2 crew members, just barely, and is a light and a fast ship carried by a larger ship for insertion in battles. And then it actually drops a very unique munitions, which is actually thermal detonators. What was interesting about this one is that instead of having a large, massive bomber, the idea behind this one was that it would fly in smaller little bombers at the same time and then launch them all off as smaller little pods. Much harder to hit. Without their own hyperdrives, they are dependent on that larger ship to get back, to get where they need to go. But I love the idea that this thing actually does hold 2 crew members inside there, and then has the BB-8 there on the side, and is just as minimal as you can get. Like, this thing is built for one purpose and one purpose only. It's meant to destroy targets, which is really awesome. Here we go. We see the underside turret, as well as a couple other places to hold munitions or other attachments. And there we go. There's our view. You didn't believe me. You really didn't believe me that there were 2 guys in there, but there absolutely is. It's tight. It's tight. But it totally works, and I love it. I think it's great. And there we have our thermal detonators that are loaded in the side underneath that little flap there, and then it drops them down just through gravity. Really good way to do it. These ships, I would imagine, probably could get in underneath the shields and then start dropping those thermal detonators under the shields, as we've seen some things like that happen in other shows and movies. All right, and now we have one of our favorite contestants who continues to come back to the channel and continues to participate and always builds some miraculous builds, but has not yet won a contest. Mostafarian, holy cow, I'm so impressed with all of the builds that you put out and how you're able to just keep going. As far as I know, Mostafarian has actually participated in every single one of the contests that I've had here on my YouTube channel. So props again to Mostafarian for doing that. So again, this is number 7, Mostafarian. Now this particular ship is called the Shalonian II Bomber. It has bomb and / missile launchers in what he called sheaths on the ship. You know, like you put a sword into a sheath? This has bomb sheaths on the ship. I'm going to show you those in just a second. It's got a triple engine back end, but I think these other ones might be supplementary or sublight engines. And then I really just like the look of this. It looks nice and smooth, but believe it or not, it doesn't use a ton of snotting techniques. It still has a nice underside base for building, which is pretty cool. It's not as complicated as some other ones. Here we have our crew compartment inside there. Again, very reminiscent of those old B-17 bombers where you've got the pilots that only face the one side so that they can walk behind on the other. So it's a very minimalistic aisle, which I think is pretty cool. And here we have the exit door that was above that ladder that we just saw. Very cool inclusion. All right, here are the bomb sheaths. There are 2 compartments on the sheath, and my understanding from his info is that normally the ship would just have 1, but this particular one has 2. So we've got the 2 different bomb sheaths inside there. You can see the one of them has a ton of bombs on there. Holy cow. I don't think I actually counted, but I think there's 20. Yeah, there's 20 of those things on there. That's a lot of parts. I don't even think I have that many cones in my collection. That's pretty awesome. It's a very impressive thing to see. And then the front one, if you look up at the top, it actually is a turret. So it's actually modular, so you could put the turret in the back bay or the front bay. So the modularity on this one is actually pretty intense. And then we see a massive bomb on there, some smaller bombs, and then the missile turret right there, all modular. Here we have, I don't know, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, Mostafarian. I'm not sure what this is. I just assumed it was the hyperdrive because it looked just like, very similar to me as the hyperdrive from the Phantom Menace. So that's pretty cool. Then on the bottom, we also have one extra little bay to be able to carry something one of kind of thing. And he decided to go with a seismic charge. Man, this guy just knows how to push my buttons and give me exactly what I'm looking for. Next up, we have NateM. And Nate built the U-45G torpedo craft. This is actually inspired by World War II submarine design. I gotta say, a lot of times I overlook certain military designs and certain things that we use on Earth, because why would they use those in space? However, this submarine not only looks like a submarine, but also very much looks like it is a spacecraft. So I got to give props to Nate for actually finding that balance between making it look like it's space-worthy, but also still keeping that submarine feeling to the ship. And this definitely gets that for me. I like the greebles along the side as well that help you give that space-worthy feeling like the Imperial ships do very much. So one of the things that Nate talked about when he submitted this is that this is a very fast ship in a straight line. And I loved that idea because, we'll go back to this. I loved that idea because that's exactly what the bombers in The Last Jedi needed to do. They just needed to fly in a straight line towards the dreadnought and then launch the bombs. And that's it. And that's exactly what this is built for. This thing is built to go really fast in a straight line right to its target. I'm trying to keep that profile, that targetable front end as small as possible. Just like, it's like you guys know me. You guys know exactly what I'm looking for a ship. I'm going to have a hard time voting myself. So the other thing that he mentioned about this particular one is that it's stealthy and travels in packs. I think he was very much inspired by the U-boats of World War II, how they would travel in little packs. I even think Nate called them wolf packs, which, if I'm not mistaken, was actually one of the terms used, but I could definitely be wrong on that. I'm not really a history expert. And then the next picture here is actually a modular bay, and at this time it's holding a scout ship that's very reminiscent of the Nemoidian transport. I'm trying to remember what it is. I can only remember my NMD5 transport. But this is a Nemoidian ship. It's just a shuttle, basically. But in this case, they've shrunk it down and made it a scout ship. We've got multiple seats inside there, unloading ramp in the back, and it actually goes together quite well. I'm very impressed with it. It looks really good. Like miniaturizing that little transport, that shuttle, it was really brilliant. They did a great job. And there it is, docked into the back of the ship, and it even looks good in the back there. Very Ghost-like, if I'm honest. The Ghost from Star Wars Rebels, by the way, for those who aren't familiar. Here we have an inside view. You can see there's a lot of room. It looks very much like a submarine. We've got the two guys up on chairs, almost like the periscopes of sorts. And then we even have little doorways and things for the guys to go through for the weapons room, the torpedo rooms. Very cool. Very cool, well thought out, and very well adapted from real life stuff. Good job, Nate. Number 9 is Nathan S. This is his Quiver class starfighter. You call it the Quiver because very much like an arrow quiver, these bombers were made to hold just large quantities of ammunition. So the idea of a Quiver class ship actually makes a lot of sense. I thought that was very good logic for the naming convention on that. So here we go. We have the Q class starfighter, the Quiver class. And what's interesting is Nathan actually built 2 different versions of the ship. He has the regular bomber version and then the heavy bomber version. And I believe the one we're showing right now is the bomber version, because on the back end, it has a mobile turret right in front of that Astromech slot right there. The shape of the ship is freaking me out because I think it's fantastic. From this view, you can actually see that the inside, the negative space, forms a sort of H. And Hawkeye is one of my favorite Avengers. So I'm wondering if that was on purpose, that it looks like an H in the negative space, which is really cool. So you actually have to look a little bit closer to see it. And so Hawkeye, bows and arrows, quiver, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I thought that was pretty cool. Here we have the opening for the gunner that's on this back turret. And here we have the pilot section open. There's actually quite a bit of room in there, which is really good. You don't want your pilot to get too cramped up inside there. You don't want to have them feel claustrophobic while they're flying your ship. Nathan went as far as to figure out how much this ship would cost. So a TIE fighter normally costs about 60,000 credits. An X-Wing costs between 150 and 160,000 credits. And then this particular bomber costs 200,000 credits. And those were just numbers that I knew from previous research that I had done pretty recently this week. And so the fact that this is about 200,000 credits is actually pretty close, I think, to what it could be for the Resistance. Oh, here we go. We got an image of one of our guys crawling out of the gunner compartment, which is pretty cool. And there we go. Oh, I know what this is. This particular one is actually the heavy bomber version. So it actually sticks out quite a bit farther into the negative space. You can see the knob on the side. That actually is used to drop the bomb. So this is just a much larger ship. Oh, and here we have one more video of the mechanism on the back. And this is the part that I thought was cool, is that the turret can not only spin 360 degrees like he's doing right now, but also flip all the way around. So very good job, Nathan. That was a really interesting thing. And I'm glad that you had the little video here to show the functionality, because it was very difficult to see. You lined everything up really well. And then here we go. This is the last view of the Bombardier version of the ship and the heavy bomber version, and where the Bombardier actually sits in the back there. And next up, and this is the last one for all of the regular contest voting. So this is by Yales Beast. This is the Resistance gunship bomber. He wanted it to be a mix between 2 B-Wings and a B-17, and it has a rotating cockpit and wide turrets for defense. So when you're looking at it from here, you can see on the very tips of the wings, that's where your defense turrets are. And the technique that he used for the defense turrets is one that I've always really liked. It was on one of the Jedi starfighters from back in the day. Came with an Ithorian Jedi, I believe. Yeah. So I love that technique of doing protective turrets and defense turrets on the things. I really like those because they don't get used nearly enough. And then here we go. We've got it taken off. You can see a little bit of rotation in the cockpit there. And then let's see. Oh, I know I have a picture in here somewhere of the cockpit fully rotated. You can see it's about 90 degrees or about 45 degrees here. And there we go. There we have it. Completely upright, just like the B-Wing, except it's on both sides, which is pretty cool. It reminds me a little bit of the Jedi shuttle that Ahsoka rides in, I think, at the end of Rebels. Spoilers. All right, here's a nice front-on shot, and you can see that those turrets that were on the ends of the wings are actually on both sides of the wings, and they're connected through the middle, I believe, just with the Technic axle, which is a fantastic technique, which I have definitely used before. So fantastic job there, Yales. And that is number 10 for Yales Beast. So I will go over the voting in just a moment, but we are going to be moving into our previous winners category. So as was said before, first place winner in this contest will get a $50 Lego gift card. The second place will get a $25 Lego gift card. And then the first place for our returning champions bracket will also be in the running for a $25 gift card. So let's jump into it and see what happens. All right, first up, we have our return winner who won both the Razor Crest contest and the Emperor's Shuttle contest. This is Parsaval, who built yet another awesome ship. This particular one has 30 proton rockets, 10 proton torpedoes, a detachable cockpit escape pod, a rocket drop mechanism, and engine pieces as launch tubes. Now, you may not know what that means, but I'm about to show you what that means. So here we have the cockpit. This is the side that can come off and be its own completely contained escape pod. They can ditch the entire rest of the ship and just have the pod ready to go and out in front of it, which I gotta say is one of the best designs for an escape pod. Just to be able to have it detached completely from the ship. It's its own little capsule. You can attach it and detach it as needed. So if you have a problem with the capsule, you can remove it and then put the other one on. Another thing that I didn't even realize until right now for some reason is that the Millennium Falcon cockpit piece he used is on both sides of the cockpit. It's on both sides. So he has a gigantic view of almost all the way around himself. He can see everything around him. Goodness gracious. How did I not think of that? I've been trying to think of something like this for a long time, and I have not been able to figure it out. Why did I never think to put it sideways? Goodness gracious. Good job. Good job, Parsaval. You stumped me again. Made me feel so silly. Here we have a super wide shot of the ship from the back end. It has two massive engines from the center, again giving you that definite B-Wing feel. You can see we even have landing gear because this isn't a Minox Squadron contest. Next, we have the front end. You can see we have a giant cannon on one end. We have the cockpit pod on the other end. And then we have the center, which has a cool turret on top. And then we have these giant holes in the front. What are those holes made of? They are engine pieces. And he has a mechanism for launching bombs out of those pieces. Those are the perfect pieces. And I don't know why I never thought of using them. I probably don't have very many. I probably have like one. So the fact that he was able to use those as conduits for his missiles is brilliant. I believe there's another picture here as well. Here we have a bomb dropping mechanism from the top there with those gears, and then the loading mechanism from the side here to stick those bombs in. The bombs are very interesting too. I like the color palette for them. The ship itself is extremely smooth. I love little greeble details. Like if you look on the you probably can't see it. I'm probably covering it up. But up on the upper left, there's a little rounded section of tile. That's really awesome. And then here is an overall view of the top of the ship as landed. There's one thing that bugs me a little bit about the ship, and that is that raised section in the middle. I want the ship to turn. I want it to rotate. It probably doesn't, but I want it to because I look at it and I think B-Wing. And so the center section that's raised up, I also want it to go down as well. I want it to be mirrored top and bottom. It probably doesn't need to do that, but that's in my mind. I go, oh, wow, that's so cool. Why didn't he finish it? It is finished. It flies flat. The cockpit doesn't rotate, TJ. Come on, give him a break. He can't do everything. And lastly, we have this ingenious mechanism, in my opinion, for launching missiles. So we see the rubber band here. We see a few Technic pieces as well. So my understanding is that the brown Technic axle, it rotates over and hits the blue axle with the bushing in the rubber band. Then as it moves it out of the way, pulls it back, stretching that rubber band, then when it reaches a certain point, it then releases because it's on a swivel. It goes around in a circle. And when it reaches the apex of that circle, the rubber band is then released. It launches the little missiles out through the engine piece out the front of the giant tube. What a cool idea. Now, my only question is whether or not the belt that we see there holding the little missiles, whether that advances the next missile to the next bay or not. If it does, I must know how that works, and I will include it in a lot of my ships going forward. And that is everything. We are done. We have gone through all 11 entrants into the contest. Really quick, I'm going to go over the rules for voting. You are going to be voting for your top 3 on the regular one. That's the numbers 1 through 10. You're going to vote for 3 of those. Then you're also going to vote for 1 from our returning winners. I know it's just an exercise in futility, but I want to get in the practice, and I want to see if this kind of voting system actually works or not. So let's try it. So your top 3 picks for the regular one, numbers 1 through 10, and then your top 1 pick from the returning winners. I'm glad we got all the entries in. I'm glad we didn't miss anybody. As far as I know, I'm sure I'll be corrected soon. But we have 1 week to finish the voting. The voting will end next week at midnight Eastern Standard Time, so that I will have some time to compile the list, record the video announcing the winner of the contest and who is going to be winning those gift cards. So thank you so much. We will catch you next time in the Lego room. And until then, play well.